always have
You mean
this.
we're going to run out of things to say?
I always have that fear. That
I doubt it.
I always have that fear. We're suddenly going to forget what we're doing and what to talk about.
From the John DeVito Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Wednesday, August the 15th, the year 2018. And now, here they are. Oh yes. Jim Leon and Rich Massaro.
Why is he laughing at us?
I don't know. John is, jeez.
John's in one of those moods today.
When I think about being down here, and I heard John, and I've heard John say this so many times from the John DeVito Broadcast Center, but this is one of the hidden gems in Norwich, I would say.
It is.
Yeah.
Talking about the neighborhood and just bringing that up here, I had a nice conversation on the phone the other night with somebody who lived right across the street from here, grew up right across the street. I'll let you think.
From here?
Right from here.
Dennis Bergman? No, that was another block down.
No, he's next block, on this block.
Jerry Skwierczynski?
Absolutely.
No kidding.
No. Yeah, I had, before your time, John. Before your time. It's the second house from the corner, and it was vacant for quite a while. But Jerry grew up there. Jerry and his brother and sister, if I remember right.
Yeah, I know. I remember his brother might have been Dennis, maybe, possibly.
I don't remember.
Or am I thinking of Kenny Shivers? His brother was Dennis.
His brother's name was Dennis.
Yeah.
In fact, I asked Jerry if he hears from Ken Shivers at all, and he said he's lost touch with him completely.
Because weren't they partners or something in that gas station on Cumberland and or not Cumberland, Lawrence and Canfield at one time? I would think it was a Standard station or something.
I don't remember.
Or did they both work there? Or?
I think they both worked there.
Okay.
Jerry's doing some well. He had some health issues.
Okay.
You and I seem to be the healthy ones.
God forbid.
And I'm not sure if that's saying much.
Yeah.
But he said he's doing well. He said he had some health issues, and Jerry always said I was 145 pounds through most of my life, and then I had some health issues and some surgery, and I dropped to 115 pounds. And he said things have turned around. I gained all my weight and then some.
That's probably better than losing 30 pounds when you weigh 145. So.
Yeah, so he said he said it was interesting too. He said a couple of people that were we always seem to get into the reunion reminiscing before we get started.
It's going to come up.
Yeah, it's going to be here before we know it. And by the way, I'll remind anybody who may actually listen to this extravaganza, if you went to Ridgewood and you were in the class of 69, and the finder of lost souls, Bill Caravia, has not found you yet. Go on to Facebook and look for Mary Georgianis Waldron and let her know where you are. We'd love to see you. And that's a way to find us too, by the way. I don't know. I got a note from Facebook when last time I posted the last broadcast to our Facebook page from WRHS, Armchair Experts, WRHS, yada, 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 that they were giving me a $10 credit to advertise it. And I don't think we picked up any more followers, but I think it reached about 700 or 800 people.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Didn't cost a dime. They gave us $10 credit just to do that.
Jim, can I ask you a question?
Ask me a question, John.
This Waldron that you were just talking about. What is her name?
Her maiden name was Georgianis.
And was Waldron.
And she's married to a guy named Jack Waldron.
Okay. Did you know where she lived when she was going to Ridgewood?
She lived on Ozanam, like the 40, I don't know, I'd say 46, 4700.
Or 4700.
That's right. The reason why I asked, when I lived over in Harwood Heights at 7437 Argyle, in Harwood Heights, the people right behind us, their last name was Waldron also.
Oh,
Oh, Waldron. Okay.
And I was wondering if that was the same people or not.
No, I don't think so. But no, Georgianis was her maiden name.
Yeah,
She had a brother named Mike.
yeah. There's
and,
Mickey. Yeah, Mickey or Mike. There was
Sister?
I think no sisters. I think she had all brothers. I think there was another. There was John maybe. I think she might have had 2 or 3 brothers,
Okay.
but I'm not totally.
I
don't
know Mike was a friend of Jim Hussey's, I believe.
Well, he was a year behind us in school, so I don't know.
But
Jim
I think
Hussey,
Jim Hussey was Jim Hussey is about 4 or 5 years older than us.
yeah.
But I think, if I remember right, Mary's brother went into the restaurant business.
That's could be.
And Italian, somehow connected, if I remember right, with the Italian village
Oh, I don't know.
at some point. I don't know, but I think that's how Jim knew him.
I know that one of her, let's see, that would be one of Mary's nephews. So it was one of her brother's sons was the quarterback on one of the recent Montini state championship teams.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so for a couple of years, that name was in the sports section when they wrote about Montini. So,
Okay.
and I'm not sure if that was Vicky's son or one. I'm trying to think if there's 3 Georgie. I think there's 2 boys and 1 girl. For obviously 2 boys and 1 girl, but I don't know if there's another brother or not. I saw Jimmy Cusack over at Andy Seshan's place. I don't know, and he saw the Facebook page that for the Ridgewood the '69 reunion. So it's got the picture of the football team,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "Well, that's you standing in the because we're like in a V, I
V.
think."
Yeah.
And he said, "That's you standing in the back." I said, I thought Walt McNeela was on that team, and I've looked at that picture, and I guess I've never really studied it because he said, I said, "Walt's not in the picture." He said, "No." I said, "I do know that year Walt had some issues with his back and missed a lot of practices and, may have not been at practice the day we had that picture taken." So he was on the team. I'm pretty sure he played in every game, but there were issues with his health, and he wasn't always. Sometimes he was in the whirlpool instead of on the practice field. So,
What's the old saying? Can't make the club in the tub.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was interesting looking at some pictures when we that people had posted when we thought we had lost Walter Gawalik, Wally Gawalik, when they posted Actually, it turned out that somebody got confused. It was his dad, which is what I thought.
Oh, so Wally's still around.
Wally's still around. He's not interested in the reunion, but Wally is still around.
Okay.
But I had questioned that whether because his dad had died, and that was Walter Sr.
Okay.
And
Interesting. Okay.
but yeah, looking at the pictures of somebody had a picture of the basketball team and trying to remember names.
Well, I was going to say, when you had mentioned to me about Wally passing, when we thought that he had passed, I didn't pass it on to you because I don't know if I saw it. I don't know if you had texted me. I know it wasn't on Facebook or anything. But I was going to say to you, and then it seemed trivial, but when you or Carol Bowman had put me in touch with Lenore Adams on Facebook probably a year or so ago, we had a conversation, and on the Facebook, and I remember when we were in grade school, Wally Gawalik had a thing for Lenore Adams, and I mentioned that to Lenore, and or Lenore might have even said to me that she had a thing for Wally, and I said, "Well, Wally had a thing for you," and she goes, "He did." It was one of those deals where, it's like 2 ships passing in the night.
Yeah.
He liked her, she liked him, but they somehow never made the connection. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. She mentioned that when she was in high school, she had a crush on him and became a big basketball fan.
Oh, okay.
Just for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, yeah, and at least, Wally's still around, not interested in the reunion, but it was sorry to see that Michelle Lockman had passed. There was a really, really wonderful person.
Well, before, let's see, what was I going to say? Oh, before we were, came over here to do the show, as I was driving over, I was thinking about a little bit about some of the people that Linda Cookma was the person I had in mind. I know that Mary said she had gotten the phone number, called her in California, left a message. I don't know if she's ever heard back.
No.
But I'm thinking, okay, for those of us who are still relatively in the area, I think it's, have we lived a life well, not me, but a lot of people have lived a life away from this place. But when you're, say, in California, which I think Linda's been for a long time, or say you live in another state, Mary Griffin, I think, is in Georgia or something. This is not universal, but that can seem, high school can seem several lifetimes away because you're so physically far from where you're at. You have a hard time imagining yourself back there. Yeah. At that point.
Yeah. And in fact, the one that I noticed who seems, if she does manage to show up, she'll certainly win the distance award, is Mary Kobarecki. She lives in Costa Rica.
Oh, I know the name, but I can't picture Mary.
And there is another one. There's another one. I can't think of her. Schellenberger.
Oh.
Well, anyhow, she lives in Australia.
I have a question.
She's retired Salvation Army.
Jim, was Irene Sabbath in our class, or was she?
I don't think so.
No, was she younger than us?
She may have been.
Or did she even go to school with us? Because all I remember Irene
I don't
from
think
was.
I don't think she went to school with us.
I remember her from the St. Joseph's. I'd see her all the time at the St. Joseph's Carnival when they had it.
I don't.
And she was really friendly with Frank Seashon and I don't know, can't remember who else.
There is a name, and I keep forgetting to. I keep forgetting to ask Mary about it on the name on the list of those who are no longer with us. Did Chris Drufke ever start in our class?
Yeah, sure. She was
did?
in our class.
Okay.
She was a cheerleader for a while. I think
she didn't graduate with us, did she?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
But I remember. I know Rick Emmerich. I think went out with her for a little bit.
Okay. And I have to ask another question. Who is Renee Rabbiola?
I think that's Maureen Rabbiola's either sister or cousin, and I don't know a whole lot about her. Is she in our class though?
Listed as one of those who have.
Yeah, I never.
Memory we remember.
Okay, I never really knew her. I know the name, but I don't know her.
Their names I look at and I go,
yeah.
Well, anyhow.
Yeah.
All right. So we began by rambling once again. Like
right.
as I posted
biggie.
last week, we talked about people who died, and then we really perked up after that.
Yeah, we perked up and got.
I mean, we could bring up Jim the Anvil Neidhart as another one.
You read my mind. You know what's interesting? I read his obit yesterday.
Alzheimer's. I just looked at it. Yeah.
And they were saying Alzheimer's, but who was it? Jimmy Hart in his obituary said that they had a big WWE get-together. I don't know if it was for WrestleMania or one of the big shows or their Hall of Fame deal or whatever. And he said Neidhart was there, and his words were sharp as a tack, telling stories. So I'm like, okay, that was what Hart was talking about was within the last calendar year. So Neidhart all of a sudden got Alzheimer's, because what Jimmy Hart said didn't I think it was Jimmy Hart anyway, didn't square with what they were saying.
It's always interesting with memory issues, and you certainly see that. I certainly see that more with. I remember it with my mother.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as the dementia started to take over more and more. She would ask me the same question 12 times, and and would smirk when I'd yell at her and say, "How many times are you going to ask me that same damn question?" And she'd smile and look and go, 12. But she'd also remember things that happened when she was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And Dana's mom, who's 93, goes through dementia issues, but can talk about things that happened when she was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, can't remember anything
Yeah.
now.
Wow.
You know,
Okay.
can't remember that you talked to her on the phone 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, but you did you texted me about Jim Neidhart too, right? And
Yes,
then,
I did.
And I think then you piggybacked Michelle Lockman or something
yeah,
on that.
because that one was kind of a shock,
Okay.
as they all seem to be. Well, enough talk about death. Let's pick up the pace here.
Yeah, let's pick up the paces, right?
John,
Jeez.
anything on your mind today? You're looking forward to Derrick Rose maybe making a comeback in the NBA this year? I take it by that look, I'm thinking no.
Yeah, I see that we did sign a Derrick though. Yesterday, Derrick Walton Jr.
Oh,
Was the University of Michigan standout that I think he was the MVP of the Big Ten tourney his senior year.
okay.
Played briefly with the Miami Heat last year, and is I think the bulk of his time he's with the what was their name? The Sioux Falls Canaries, is it? I think it might be the G League team.
Is that the G League team or is that the independent baseball team?
Okay, well, put it this way: he played with the Sioux Falls team in the G League, so I don't know
Okay.
what their nickname is. I might be mixing it up with the baseball team.
Yeah, I have to laugh because I read somewhere that the Cavaliers were putting out promotions on their upcoming season, and they talked about teams coming into town, and they mentioned that the Lakers will be in town on such and such a day, and they mentioned
Lonzo Ball,
Lonzo
not
Ball,
LeBron.
and all these.
not
Also,
LeBron.
also former Cavalier LeBron James.
I like that. That's a good way to do it. I'm really curious how LeBron's going to do out there, though, Jim. He's, you know what? At some point, as magnificent a physical presence as he is, that at some point that's going to fade, and what is that point? Because he's in his early 30s.
30. He'll be. I already thought he was 34. I think he turns 34.
I was going to say 34, but I wasn't
I think
sure.
I think he turns 34.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, started playing in the pros when he was 18. So there's an awful lot of minutes on them legs.
I was going to say I'm not a big LeBron fan anyway, but I was a little disappointed in his decision to go to LA because I think I don't see them, even with him as being, and maybe I'm wrong, even with him as being like championship ready. Whereas if you would have gone to the 76ers with a lot of really good young talent, maybe that would have been
I had never thought about him with the 76ers until months ago when you brought it up.
yeah.
And it really would have been a good fit. LeBron going to the Lakers was not more of a basketball decision,
Right.
but it was a business and family
Yeah.
decision. Business because he's expanding more and more in the media.
Mm-hmm.
And why you could do it while you could do it anywhere, let's face it, Los Angeles is the center of it.
Yeah.
And from a family standpoint, I guess LeBron Jr. is quite a talented basketball player. And I think he feels his son would get more exposure to the big basketball schools
Okay.
in there, and obviously leading to an NBA career. So honestly, I think it was more of a business and a family decision.
I think one of his goals, if he can keep performing, is maybe to play with his son in the NBA at some point in time. So you don't know.
Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr. played in the same outfield.
Yeah.
And
That's
it can happen.
That's got to be
It can
a
happen.
cool thing for them.
All right. I'll make a statement here, and I think
Good.
you probably
I
agree
hope
with
so.
it. I think you probably agree with it. I think Joe Madden has made one of his best efforts in management this year.
Excellent. I mean,
I don't care about the meatballs, the Fire Joe Madden Facebook page, and some of the other meatball things
yeah.
that he's done. To be able to do what he's done with the injuries, some really god-awful starting pitching.
Yeah, so that's I sometimes I think about that, and I'm wondering how are we staying where we're at. I think the one worry that I would have is that if the bullpen eventually just caved in,
Yeah,
and then we'd be in big trouble.
yeah.
But no, I mean with Bryant being out for an extended period, your closer being gone since sometime in June, was it, or July? I
can't
don't know.
even
Remember?
And you're-
2/5 of your starting rotation, let's just put it this way, not working out. And there's probably other issues I could think of, but those are pretty major ones. And for us to still be on top, you have to give Joe a lot of credit. And I'll tell you what, with Javi Baez is having a great year. I think, what I like, Joe thinks outside the box. You have
Yeah.
Anthony Rizzo. You don't have an obvious leadoff hitter. So you have Rizzo, who's a good, has been a good productive hitter in his time in the majors. So why not Rizzo? I mean,
So it's not the prototype.
yeah, it's not the prototype, but we
leadoff
don't have
man.
the prototype.
We don't- No. The only prototype that I would consider close to being a prototype leadoff man is a guy who doesn't play every day, and that's Almora.
Yeah. Although, you know what, people, I was talking to somebody one day, and they said, oh, he's got to play every day. And my opinion on, say, Almora, Happ, Schwarber, Hayward, those guys for sure, those four, is the productivity that you see from them. You can give some of the credit to Joe because he picks their spots when he can.
Yeah.
And I think if, say, Albert Almora, fine player, I think, but I'd say if you play him every day, my opinion is you shave 20, 30 points off of his batting average. Right now
you probably do.
Yeah.
I was trying to reach behind to see what the numbers are. There's David Bodie, by golly. And Ben Zobrist is hitting 309 this year, too.
Ben is, he's Ben
Albert-
has been.
Albert Almora, 297.
Yeah.
On base percentage, 335. Slugging, 463.
Mm-hmm.
No, 403, I think.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah, with that, I'd say 403.
The other thing that people have to keep in mind is, especially with the outfielders, or I'd say, throw the outfielders and infielders all into one basket, and you'd say he's got maybe a couple too many guys. So and they're all guys who deserve to play. So now you have to balance that playing time out. Because you can't. Okay, say take Ian Happ. You're trying to have him be productive, and at the same time, he's a young guy. You're still trying to develop him. I'd say Joe's doing a great job with a pretty tricky balancing act that he's got to do. And you're having trouble, Jim. With
All of a sudden I can't hear out of the
Oh wow. Okay.
headset. Nothing.
But I think Joe Madden's doing an outstanding job. Sorry, you hear?
Hello?
now?
No.
You're good. You're not hearing anything.
Maybe it's my hearing, John. I
don't know. Maybe Jim just went deaf on us.
Maybe I've just gone deaf.
Okay, let's see if this one works.
Hello, hello,
How
hello.
about you? You
I
hear me?
hear a little buzzing in there.
Okay.
All right. Anyhow.
Anyway. Okay.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, don't get panicky, John. Don't worry about it right now.
Okay. But yeah, Joe's doing a great job. I think.
I think so. And he's got a lot of depth. And you talk about the way he uses his players. I brought this up. I brought this up a while back. I brought this up a while back about somebody had listed who had played the most innings in the majors.
Yeah, you did bring that up.
Okay. I think it's fine now. I don't know what happened or what I did, or maybe I. Yeah, maybe that was it. Maybe that was it. I don't know. Maybe that was it. I think I hit the switch. Don't panic, John. Everything's good.
Good.
Okay. that he had played, the player that played the most innings in the majors. And it was a testimony to the depth of the Cubs that there was nobody even in the top 50
Wow.
in innings played. And I think it was Baez was 72nd
Okay.
in the number of innings played.
Well, what was the biggest knock on Leo after the '69 season?
He wore his
Is
players
that
down.
he wore his players down,
He
and
wore his players down, which indeed was the case. And I mean, in those days, it was all-day games. Mm-hmm.
And he didn't. It depend. I think I shouldn't say it this way. Depending on the manager, Leo was the type of manager. That's the way he did it.
That's right.
If you had a guy like Casey Stengel, it was a different story. I was thinking. Everybody talks about analytics and the sabermetrics and all this. I was thinking about Joe. It's interesting that you brought Joe Madden up because I was thinking about Joe again in comparison to Casey Stengel. And I'm thinking, you remember when Casey with Tony Kubek would play the outfield once in a while?
Yeah.
And, people, I don't know how people view that, but they, wow, he mixed things up. Well, did you ever think, and we didn't have the sabermetrics, but maybe Casey wanted to get another player in the game against a certain pitcher, maybe, and maybe that player was an infielder, and Kubek could play the outfield. So to get the optimum out of his lineup, he would put Tony out in the outfield. Not that Tony was the greatest outfielder, but to get the most out of his lineup.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know that that's a fact, but I'm thinking that's probably what was going on.
It's a logical conclusion.
Yeah.
I had a brief Facebook exchange with Gibb and Michelle Moore.
Okay.
And they were watching a game in their retirement haven down in Florida.
Okay.
And they got into it. I think the two of them got into a discussion of who the greatest managers were.
Okay.
And I think Gibb brought up Casey, or brought up Joe, and I said I liken Joe to Casey because of the way he plays. He doesn't follow the book. Michelle brought up the name Miller Huggins. I said, Miller Huggins didn't need to manage anything. He just wrote the lineup card and sent those guys out in those days.
Yeah.
He didn't have to worry about anything.
Yeah, I guess. I mean that would be the way most people would look at it. But even with a team like he had, which for anybody who doesn't know, Miller Huggins was the manager of the 27 Yankees, which is often talked about as the greatest team
ever
to ever play the game. But I'm sure, the other day, Jim, I'm sitting there and the name Wilcie Moore came into my into my head.
He was kind of the early pseudo relief pitcher.
Well,
wasn't he?
I looked at his record, and the best year he had, which was his rookie year, and I think he was fairly old. I didn't check that age. Was that year, 1927, with the Yankees?
Yeah.
He was like 19-5 or 6.
Yeah.
And I think probably the way they used him was the way they used a lot of guys. He might have pitched in relief, but he also might have started a little bit.
Yeah.
But the rest of his career, I believe he's a under 500 pitcher. The most he ever won again, I think he was with the Red Sox several years later and won 10 and lost like 13. That was the next best year he ever had. So I guess good fortune there, where you just you catch what do you call it, lightning in a bottle, so to speak. In the case of Wilcie Moore, because you get him, you use him right, and it's the best year he ever had.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that that team probably had its issues and its troubles just as well as every other one.
Sure.
People are under the impression that when you're a champion, that it's I would say this: the year the Cubs won the World Series, everybody makes that year sound like it was just a joyride from beginning to end. I'm pretty sure if you look at that year, though, it probably wasn't. But that's the impression that everybody seems to have.
They really, they were doing well, but they really caught fire August, I think, and really opened it up.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are waiting for that here right now. And it's interesting as I'm looking at the standings today in the Sun-Times. Nobody's really having any big streaks right now, although in the last 10 games, the Cardinals have won 9 out of 10.
Yeah, the Cardinals have been playing pretty well.
Atlanta's won 7 out of 10. But you look at a bunch of other teams in the National League. Last 10 games, the Phillies 5-5, Washington 4-6, the Mets 6-4. The Marlins, just forget about it. Milwaukee, the Cubs are 6-4. Milwaukee's 500. Pittsburgh's 4-6. Pittsburgh, I thought, would have done better this year.
You know what I was thinking about, Jim? Baseball related and Cubs related. People were hot on the Cubs trying to get Manny Machado, but Manny Machado has now probably been with the Dodgers for, I don't know, a month possibly.
Close to that.
And the Dodgers, not to say, hey, they're in the race, but they're certainly not in first, and Manny Machado certainly hasn't fueled them to run away with the race. They're behind by a game or game and a half.
Yeah, they're down by a game and a half, and the Dodgers have lost 7 out of their last 10.
Yeah, so
and they're half a game behind Colorado and a game and a half behind Arizona.
So what I see and what happens fairly regularly, the best trade seems to be the one the Cubs made for Cole Hamels, and there's a guy who, when you're playing with a losing team, I'm not saying you're not giving your all, but the problem that you have is the games don't really mean much anymore.
Right.
And you get traded to a contender, and now you got that fire back. And in Hamels' case, I think that's what happened. I think I don't know if it's going to be the same result that the Astros had with Justin Verlander, but so far, good results.
So far, good results, and I'm looking. I mean, in 3 games, he's won 2. He's got an earned run average of about $1.
Mm-hmm.
They're hitting 177 against him, and the whip is less than 1.
Yeah.
So the numbers are good so far. Let's take a break, John.
We're at that number.
We're at that, speaking of numbers.
You're listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVito Broadcast Center on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, August the 15th with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich, Illinois. And now back to Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro.
Some of the mentioning this name made me think of this. Sometimes there's some interesting posts in some of these groups on Facebook. One of them, one of the groups that's interesting sometimes with some of the posts is something called, I think it's called Vintage Baseball Pictures. And somebody put a picture up and told a story with it. And he either is or was a marketing guy with the Padres.
Okay.
And he talked about the interns that they had in the marketing department. I mean, you're talking going back, in the 60s, or, maybe 70s, early 70s. He said one of the, he mentioned the name of the young lady in the marketing, that she was an intern and she really was a great person. And a lot of times, he said, when my wife and I went away, she'd come and, dog sit, and the dogs really loved her. And I guess her boyfriend lived in the neighborhood too, so it gave her a lot of time to spend time with her boyfriend. And he said, as things went on, her and her boyfriend got married.
Okay.
And they had a boy, and this guy thought it would be kind of a cute gift that the Padres gave her as the baby gift. They gave the little boy a lifetime contract with the San Diego Padres with a magnificent sum of $1. And
This is sounding familiar.
and the family and the couple put it up, and lo and behold,
Thanks, John.
the young man had a great career as a high school pitcher, and they began to talk to him about a career, and he said, they talked about the odds of making it coming out of high school. He said you'd probably be better to go to college and do all this stuff, and he said, well, what would it take you to get what would it take you to sign a contract now if you're drafted? He goes, $1 million bonus. Well, what if it's $900,000? He said, I want $1 million bonus. Young man was Cole Hamels.
Oh, jeez. Man.
Turned out to be Cole Hamels.
Now, who was the original? Was his the team that originally drafted him? Was who then? The Phillies. Was it?
Phillies. I believe
Okay.
it was the Phillies.
Hey, Jim, I tell you what. Sometimes phrases in the paper are repeated so often that they begin to get to me. I have during this Roquan Smith holdout, I have heard the beat writers for the Sun-Times and the Bears mention ad nauseum, in my opinion, adding Smith to a top 10 defense, and I'm like, what? I heard enough of a top 10 defense.
I don't know yet.
I would give I give Vic Fangio and his staff plenty of credit because I think that they got the Bears into that position where they were the number 10 defense, I guess, in the league last year. But a lot of that, I just don't know if the talent is, if you can call this a top 10 defense. I think there's good talent, but I don't know. I honestly, when I did the Sun-Times, do you ever do that quiz? Or I won't say quiz. They do that annually. It happened about 2 weeks ago. They give you a test, and you get to grade. They give you 10 subjects. Minus 10 means you're not sold on whatever they're talking about. 0 means, you wait to see. Plus 10, you obviously think it's a positive, and then you compile your score and see where you're at. And out of the 10 questions, my score was a 10, which said, I have to see it to believe it. But say Mitch Trubisky was one of the subjects. I gave him a 0. I don't think I'm not saying he's good or bad, but we don't know yet. Matt Nagy was another subject. I gave that a 0. I mean, he seems like he's going to be okay, but we don't know that yet. I gave the defense the same thing, a 0, because my opinion is they may have overperformed, and I'm still looking at guys like Prince Amukamara and Kyle Fuller and Adrian Amos and Eddie Jackson as maybe question marks. Leonard Floyd, very good talent, still a question mark, hasn't finished out a season yet. Danny Trevathan, very good player, hasn't finished out a season yet. So what do we talk? And I gave the offense a 0. They say they've upgraded, but a lot of these guys are unproven.
I was thinking the same thing, and I was going to get into this. And I know the game last weekend, and again, it's exhibition football.
Mm-hmm.
I never put that much stock into it, but when you send Trubisky out there with the first team,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't produce,
Yeah.
and your backup played really well.
Yeah, Jim, I didn't see Trubisky or Chase Daniels, but I saw Bray.
Okay.
That's the majority of the game I saw. And I understand you're playing against probably rookies and hangers-on.
Yeah.
But I was impressed in the sense that Bray knew who he was throwing to. The receivers seemed to know where they were going. The ball was getting there in good shape, on time, on target. And I didn't see Trubisky or Daniels. I did see Bray. And I was encouraged by that. That's your third-team guy throwing some good footballs, and your other guys making some good catches.
Yeah, and you're throwing the ball to guys, and they're being defended by guys who, in 3 months might be saying you want fries with that.
Right. But here's the other thing, though, Jim. What I really liked as well, other than when somebody got their helmet involved, and I think you're going to see a lot of that. The Bears played a clean game in terms of offsides, holding. You didn't see it, which is I like. I mean, you're going to need that out of them,
which is much better than we saw in the last regime.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, I guess I don't know.
Yeah, which I look at the team and I think if I would have done this, I probably would have been the same grade as you.
Mm-hmm.
I think certainly Trubisky has talent.
Yeah, I think he does.
He was playing with poor players and poor coaching last season.
Yeah, do you think so?
I think so.
Well, I don't know about I'm not really sure.
I think
to be honest with you, I don't see.
Who was the offensive coordinator?
Dowell Loggins.
Dowell Loggins. What's he doing nowadays?
He's the offensive coordinator for the Dolphins.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
Well,
so
Adam Gase.
So Gase thinks enough of him to make him the OC. My feeling is, Jim, last year, not to get into discussion about last year, is you can't have it both ways. I was interested to see in the paper today, they're talking about the scrimmage with the Broncos before the game with the Broncos, and that one of the beat writers had anything to say about, oh my God, if Trubisky plays, he could get hurt. You know what? Last year, you can't have last year. Now I heard them knock the prior coaching staff this year because Trubisky, if I remember correctly, started an exhibition game and he handed off almost all the time.
Right, I remember that.
And then I don't remember the reason, but they put him in at the end of the game and he threw some passes and they were like, "Oh my God, you're going to get him hurt." You cannot have it both ways. But my initial point here, going back to what we're talking about, is you have a young quarterback, and I give John Fox and his staff a lot of credit. You're trying to win. You're trying to hold on to your job. You have a guy who has not been a professional quarterback that you sort of have to protect in some ways because he can't make all the plays. So you're really, to make a long story short, you're sort of walking a tightrope. And, maybe you want to do more, but you don't think that you can do more. You don't have the players out there to do more. You're playing with, Josh Bellamy as your top receiver. You're playing with a rookie tight end in Shaheen. So you're playing with a banged-up offensive line. You don't want to get the young quarterback killed by passing too much. And so, to me, all the talk about that type of talk is I don't agree with it. Nagy has obviously it's going to be a different type of offense. But the big thing will be to see is Trubisky going to run it.
Yeah, and in a game like they played against the Bengals, you're not going to see. You're just going to see the bare bones.
Well, I heard people say, "Oh, the defense looked terrible." 2 scores and two. I said, "You think that they did?" You know what Fangio did? He said, "Okay, everybody go out there. We're going to play a quarter, vanilla defense, straight up.
Right.
And we're not going to stunt. We're not doing anything.
We're not going to show them anything.
And so,
and the offense is we're going to do basic."
Yeah,
we're not going to show them anything. Yeah.
So
that's why it gets to the point where maybe they are right. Maybe you should make the regular season 18 games and 2 exhibition games.
Yeah, I would never be for that, but because I think you need to see.
If they did that, you're not going to be able. If they ever did that. You can't start out an 18-game season with a 53-man roster.
Yeah,
I think you probably have to start an 18-game season with maybe a 60-man roster and by a certain date.
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to establish a 53-man roster. It reminds me, I think, of a lot of things we used to do in the old Chicagoland Football League. I think we had a certain number of players that could be a maximum at some point, but at some point in the season, you were only limited to this.
You know, I always get a kick out of it, Jim, when they did a thing. I think there was an article in yesterday's paper where they talked about different things in camp. And one of the writers said, hands down, Anthony Miller, best thing in camp, best player in camp. And I was thinking, I remember one year where they had the summer league, not at Malcolm X, but Malcolm X was under construction, so they had it at Triton. So we used to go to the games. Yeah. And the guy who knocked everybody's socks off, get ready for it, was Mitchell J.J. Anderson. Now, what kind of a career did Mitchell? He had he was a skinny
kid.
Leaper, so he got banged around the NBA, but he was lights out in the summer league. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be Anthony Miller's case, but this is the problem. When you say, it's like Trubisky threw two picks in practice. Who the hell gives a damn?
So
I mean, you know what? You know how many guys throw picks and they intercept and they make spectacular plays in practice. You know what practice is? You're going probably 75%. Who cares?
I suddenly want to do Allen Iverson going practice.
Practice. I mean, you need to practice, but if you think practice is an indication of game conditions, or it doesn't.
And they're talking about this scrimmage against the Broncos, and oh my God, somebody could get hurt. On the way over, I was listening to had the radio on, and the Bears beat reporter on the Score, Mark Grody, was at practice with the scrimmage, and he was phoning in, and they said, he said they had heard that there would not be any contact during these 2 days of practice.
Okay.
That they said, well, he said, we've heard the same thing, but, he says, you never know when they decide to go live.
Yeah, they might go live a little bit. You know what? That's a thing where you've been around football,
sure.
And you've seen practices. And I'm sure it's probably this to less a degree with the pros, but it still exists. If something is happening that one of the coaches, Van Joseph or Matt Nagy or one of the coordinators doesn't like, and they get a bug up their rear end, all of a sudden it'll be, you know what, guys, this is really not working. We're going to go live for 5-10 minutes, and because this is not benefiting anybody, so we're going to go live, see what's going to go, and that can happen. They will go live on occasion, I'm sure. Somebody, one of the coaches won't like what's happening, and boom, we'll go live. So
yeah. Have you just talking about practice and that? And I haven't watched any of it. I was going to ask if you do it. I don't know if you get HBO. I haven't watched any of Hard Knocks.
I heard who's this year? The Browns
Cleveland.
Or something? Yeah.
I'd be curious to see.
I heard they were.
Some smart aleck put a meme up on Facebook that said, in NFL results today, bye week 24, Cleveland Browns 21.
You know what? I don't know how this is going to translate, but I was sold on Baker Mayfield when he was in college, and I think he'll do well for the Browns. Does that mean that's going to translate into a lot of wins for them? Who knows? Here's the other thing. When you talk about guys will sit there at coffee to look at the schedule. Oh, the Bears, they could go 8-8. Look at their schedule. I said, you know what? How about a team that goes from wasn't there a team last year that had been like 6-10 the previous year and then became a playoff? Was it the Eagles or the Rams? Maybe.
The Rams. The Rams.
So when you
wound up winning 12 games last year.
When you sit down and you start to try to analyze where you should be winning and losing in a schedule, that to me that's futile. You don't know how much has a team improved, how much has another team declined. It's
you can't do that at this, because you can sit there and look at this and go, All right, let's just look. Let me find the Bears schedule. Okay, all right. They open up. You don't know where everyone is. They open up at Green Bay, then they come home to play Seattle. Then they go to Arizona. They come home for Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
If they come out of there 2-2, I'd be thrilled.
What were the first four again?
Green Bay, Seattle, Arizona, and Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I mean, and really, when you think about it, think of this, Jim. I hear everybody say, geez, okay, the Bears improved, but they're in a tough division.
Yeah.
I'm like, but here's the thing that sneaks up on people. Aaron Rodgers is another year older, coming off an injury. Not saying he's not going to be good, because, Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest quarterbacks that's ever played.
Sure.
But you don't know, when is he going to hit that peak and then start to either fall way off or gradually come down. The other thing for Green Bay, their defense, unless they've pepped it up, was never that great. He's lost some of his favorite receivers.
Sure.
So, and you know what? I think if you really wanted to analyze in a negative fashion, you could say, hey, yeah, is it competitive? Yeah, but is it really something where the Bears couldn't beat the Packers or the Lions or the Vikings? I say wrong. They could probably beat any of those teams. The Vikings are probably the strongest out of the four.
The Vikings are the strongest, and I'm going to be very curious to see, is Kirk Cousins really worth the money they're paying him?
Well, it's a great question, because I think
all guaranteed.
He's been really good at putting up numbers, but it hasn't translated into a lot of wins.
Had one playoff win.
Yeah.
One playoff win and a great catchphrase. You like that?
Yeah. So,
but when they had a good quarterback and they let him go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that really, and I looked at I probably picked up a football magazine, and I think the question was, I think the article may have read, most overpaid players for this season, and Kirk Cousins. Was right there.
How? Yeah, I agree with that.
I think the simple fact that, however long the contract was, it's all guaranteed.
Wow.
And that's like, wow.
Yeah, that's... I'd say this, though. The other thing, going back to schedules and teams you're playing, last year when Sam Bradford got hurt, Case Keenum came in and did a fantastic job. When Carson Wentz got hurt, Nick Foles, who almost was retired, came in and did an excellent, great job. Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
So, you know what? There's always going to be a few wild cards that nobody expects that get thrown into the season, and you can't tell where those are coming from.
Yeah.
So it just, hey, God bless. Somebody wants to take a guess. I know that when we did the remote after the mayor left, Tom McKenna, who led the panel discussion, wanted to talk football. So everybody said 8-8, including me. I just said, well, whatever, I'll throw it out there. But it could be anything, Jim. The Bears, if everything goes right, heck, who knows what I'm not just saying Bears, any team.
Any team.
Yeah.
Any team in this day and age of free agency,
mm-hmm.
can catch lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And go from nothing to a playoff team.
I agree.
Yeah,
a few things go right, and
quite frankly, with the Bears, if I saw a 7-9 season this year, I'd be delirious.
Yeah, that'd be a big improvement. I know that they were looking. I think Vegas has the over/under on wins 6.5 or something like that.
Okay. All right.
So
that was my next question. I haven't looked to see what anybody had on here.
It was 6.5, and it could be anything. I sit with these guys, and one of the guys says, "You think the Bears can't even win 3 games?" I'm like, "Come on, are you kidding? There's got to be 3 wins in there somewhere, but there's probably more.
Yeah.
There's probably more than 3 wins."
I look at it. I look at it right now. I said I'd be happy out of that first 4 games if they were 2-2.
Okay, you're figuring they'd lose to the Packers in Seattle, right?
Yeah. They could beat Arizona and Tampa Bay.
Well, Arizona, I think, is the longest odds in the league to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So, I don't even know what that's based on. I have no idea what Arizona has or doesn't have.
Yeah. I come and I look at the rest of the schedule. After those first 4 games, they've got an early bye this year, October 7th. Then they go to Miami.
Okay.
And I think Miami, it's going to be a question of who's their quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, think of this, though, Jim. Say Tampa Bay. Okay, I would
And
say
Winston,
that's...
I think, is out. I think Winston is still would be under his suspension at that point.
If he was... I was going to say, if Winston plays... I mean, he's a wild card. He could be great one week and he could stink the next, but he's... I mean, that's what you got to deal with.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
But I think, Jim, the thing to look at for me, for the Bears, and I don't even know, I'm not analyzing this deeply, I'm looking at the secondary. You need the 2 corners, the 2 primary corners, to really play as well as they did last year. I think for the Bears to have a shot to be better. Most people would say, well, why are you saying that? But, well, I think, to me, of course, you have to have a pass rush. But if you're not getting a great pass rush, then those corners need to be really, really good. And I'm not sure that the Bears are going to get a great pass rush. So
I don't know.
It's
I don't know.
they could, which would, but I'm still saying the corners to me are critical. They're laying a lot of, how could you say, they're putting a lot of faith in Kyle Fuller and Amukamara. Now, who's behind those guys? I don't know.
I have no idea who's behind them. And I think the question regarding Kyle Fuller was great play last year. He was in a contract year.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to get now?
Well, I think he's actually a guy who, in a sense, was bum-wrapped because of that 1 year that he sat out. My attitude about that is only a player knows how he feels. I go back to when my dad was sick, not that he was a player, but he had cancer and it was in remission, and he'd go back for his x-ray every month and it would come out clear, but he still wasn't feeling well. And it ended up that there was a tumor that was hidden and he ended up dying. So my point is that only you know how you feel. I mean, the doctors could tell you, no, your knee's fine. Well, guess what? It doesn't feel fine.
That's right.
So Fuller got sort of bad rap for that, but I actually have always thought that Fuller was a solid football player. Amukamara, I think, is a little bit of a question mark because he's a journeyman and he's had some good years and he's had some not so good years. So I look at them, say if Fuller got hurt again and Amukamara didn't play well, now you got Marcus Cooper again backing up. They brought him back. I mean, you're vulnerable. Those guys are out there on an island.
Sure.
They got to be sharp.
Sure.
And I'm not so sure that last year was okay. Not so sure that this year is going to be okay.
Okay.
I hope it will be.
Yeah, I look at the rest of the schedule. They go to Miami. Like I said, it's going to be a question of who's Miami's quarterback. They come home for New England.
Oh, they're playing New England. Oh, they're playing the AFC East then?
Yeah,
That's
they have actually. Then they have all these games are the AFC East, right? Miami's in the East, isn't it?
It'd be Miami, New England.
New England. Then they come home to New England and the Jets.
Okay.
Then they go on the road to Buffalo.
Okay. Well, I would say those are all competitive games.
Those are all competitive games.
Yeah.
There's very easily another couple of wins there.
There could be, but there could be...
there could be 3 losses.
Yeah, so...
Yeah. Then they have Detroit and Minnesota at home. Actually, they get Detroit 2 out of 3 weeks because Thanksgiving Day they're in Detroit.
Okay.
And the Lions are... I don't know. You look at the Lions and you never figure the Lions out.
You can't. They're
they're
very erratic.
Yeah. Then they go on the road to play the Giants. They come home for the Rams and the Packers. And then they go on the road to San Francisco and finish the season in Minnesota.
So I would actually
8-8 is possible.
it's possible, but I still see that the last part of that schedule seems pretty tough to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Again, it's all iffy. It's based on what teams were like last year. And here's the other thing: you don't know what I mean, for all you know, you could get to say play the Rams, and their quarterback could be. Who knows? Could be injured. They could be decimated by injuries. So what looks like it would be a tough game sitting here right now could be.
So could the Bears.
Yeah, So you don't know. It's just, especially football, where injuries come into play. So in such a big way.
Yeah.
What? Let me ask you this: Do you think that everybody has got Roquan Smith eventually beating out Kwiatkowski? But if you're really the Bears, I think you're sitting there saying, well, this is going to actually be the combination, Kwiatkowski and Smith. Danny Trevathan, he may be here this year, but I doubt if he'll be here next year.
I don't know if he'd be here next year. I think that's a very valid point.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I would go so far as saying, and there's no way this is going to prove out, but if Smith would have been in camp when he was supposed to be and looked good, that Danny Trevathan may have been a guy that they would have just said bye-bye to. And why not? You got to, what? Nobody's really expecting this team to be a playoff team. So why not put Smith and Kwiatkowski, which is your future inside linebackers, together and see how they play?
Yeah.
Let them grow up together.
I think that's a very logical point to make.
Yeah. So, what do you think about the outside linebackers now? They seem to be concerned because you got Floyd, and then you have really sort of three questions. Acho.
Acho.
You got Floyd, Acho. Lynch has been hurt the whole training camp.
Yeah,
so far.
and they're still kind of holding on to him.
Yeah, and then you got Fitz and you got Irving.
I always liked Acho.
Acho's solid.
Acho is a solid player, does a good job. Floyd, if you can keep him healthy for a whole season.
Yeah, I think he's a really good player and a really good. I think it sounds to me anyway from what he says. He's a good guy. I think he's a good team player.
I think the big thing this year is how solid the offensive line is going to be.
That'll be a big question mark, and nobody is talking a whole lot about that.
No, haven't heard much of anything about it. You don't know whether Long is going to be able to play.
It sounds like at this point, at least he's healthy, and they're monitoring his practice time.
Yeah.
Robinson
hasn't, and again on the offensive side, receivers, Robinson hasn't even hit the field yet during a game.
Yeah, although I think he's close to. The
plan is supposed to be that he'll play.
Yeah, I think
this
he
week
will play. Yeah, but you know what they say? Okay, Robinson, if he plays, and if he, I'll say this: you go through a knee injury as a receiver. That doesn't necessarily mean he won't be effective, but if he's maybe a little slower, that could affect his production. And you've got Kevin White is still, who knows what's going to happen with him.
Kevin White's a wild card.
Yeah,
he's never going to have the speed he had.
Yeah.
After the leg injuries.
And you got Miller. That's why everybody's raving about Miller, but you're talking about a guy. It's like talking about Trubisky.
Yeah.
Trubisky's got now a season under his belt. Miller is a rookie. You look good in practice. Of course, you're playing against that top 10 defense, but you play some exhibition games. But when the lights come on and the first real game is played, to me, that's a totally different animal. All of a sudden, you played an exhibition game the last week of the exhibition season. 1 week goes by, now you're playing a regular season NFL game. I would say, my opinion, night and day. Night and day.
You're seeing what the other team's offense and defense is really like.
Right.
And you're seeing it at full speed.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Where if you were in that last exhibition game, and let's say you played that second half, well, you got guys who are doing two things there across from you. One, trying to make the team, or two, trying to build up some good tape
Yeah.
that people will look at and say, well, why don't you come on in?
Yeah.
Let's come on in and let's have a look at you. And, they're playing not necessarily for a job with your opponent, but they're playing for somebody else.
Yeah. No, it's true.
And that's really what it's going to come down to be. I was glancing, and it's getting to the point we're going to have to wrap up here, but I got a kick out of something this week since I see a little blurb here on the side as far as the schedule. A true sign for the end of summer. The Little League World Series is going on.
Oh, okay.
But I had a good laugh, and I think this clip went viral. I think the kid's name was Albert Delia.
Oh, okay.
And they had the video of him being introduced and him getting to say his name. And I think it was something like, my name is Al Delia. They call me Big Al, and I hit dingers.
I was out last night, and I couldn't hear what was going on, but I think, is it Jimmy Kimmel that's on at 10:30?
Yeah.
He had this kid on.
Did he really?
Not in the studio,
No,
but
on yeah. Oh, I wish
and
I would have seen that.
I'm looking at the kid, and I didn't know till you just mentioned the story why. I didn't know what the deal was. But okay, my name is Big Al.
I'm Big Al, and I
hit dingers. Okay, no wonder he had him on.
You gotta love a kid like that.
Yep.
Hey, we had for two guys who couldn't figure out what the hell to talk about, we did all right for about an hour and change. Huh? John nods his head.
Yeah.
John nods his head, and even though I said that, he didn't grab the phone and dial the priest.
No.
So.
Hey, John, we appreciate everything you do, buddy.
Everything you do for us, John, we really appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys being here.
So.
You are my family.
Yeah. We're his family.
I noticed that he didn't get that close to the microphone when he said it.
What's
Okay, I will repeat. You guys are my family. We've been together for many years.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
hope to continue.
We've been doing this for
I don't know how many years have we been doing this?
Okay, I met up with Kevin between Christmas and New Year's of 2011 to 2012.
Okay.
we did the football for what? Football and basketball for about five seasons.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Jim, you know what? As long as let me extend this for just a couple of minutes because I want to say something about John. Several people. Chris Mraz was one. I think Sam Palazzo was another. And let's just say I'm not going to emphasize it or exaggerate it, but I've had a half a dozen people come up to me at various times and say, "Are you guys still doing basketball or football or whatever?" And I'll say no. And they'll say, "Well, why?" And I'll say, "Well, you know what, John DeVita." And sometimes they'll know who John is. Sometimes I'll have to explain who John is. I said, and I mentioned what happened with John. And I said, we really felt that John was disrespected and that we were going to support John. But I also tell them, I said, I'll tell you right now, John DeVita, when we first started, Jim and I started basketball, we were able to do it and I'm not going to go into everything that was done, but by the time we finished doing what we were doing with basketball, John had upgraded that broadcast tremendously.
Yes,
our facilities,
Yes,
what
he
we
did.
had. And I said, now here's the other thing. We always wanted to do football. And we were told that it was impossible. There was no connection, electrical connection out there where we could do it.
There are no cables.
Yes. And John got a hold of this idea, and he basically said, what are you talking about? We can do this. And he did it. He and Pat Rossi got together. They did the work.
Ran the cables
and did it. So I said, you're talking. So this is a guy who made a lot of things that I hope anyway, people saw as positives for Ridgewood High School. And, one, in my eyes, minor incident and it shot the whole thing down.
It ended it unfairly, and I think with a lack of communication about some of the complaints that we allegedly were receiving, that nobody ever communicated to us.
That's true. We're capable of changing, even though we have gray hair and
even though we're old and stubborn.
yeah.
And the fact that it seemed like every time there was a problem, we got 3 different stories. Mm-hmm. This will probably end our broadcast on WR.
You never know, but I think it's good. It's good to say, and the only thing I'm saying though basically is John did a lot of things, and he did a lot of things on his own initiative. And those listen, there's many times I think back and I say, I remember when I was still on the board, and John and Jim were both given awards for their volunteerism for Ridgewood High School. Now, to me, I didn't see anything change with either of those two gentlemen, yet we, all 3 of us, are basically on the outside looking in. So what really changed? I won't get into that, but that's the name of the game.
That's the name of the game, and that's fine.
A big question will be answered Monday morning at 7:30.
So, anyway.
Well, I guess we'll be on just the internet pretty soon.
Yeah.
Well, okay. All right, that's interesting. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to lose any sleep.
No, I'm going to make the same amount of money as I'm making right now, so it's not going to bother me.
Not going to bother me one way or the other. Anyhow, that's going to wrap it up for us today for another outstanding broadcast, and maybe we'll be back in a couple of weeks and do this again. Till the meantime, you got the theme cranked up, John? Yes, I hear it. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks for listening. We had fun. We'll catch you again somewhere down the road.
Oh, yeah.
Until then, we are Taillights.
You have been listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, August the 15th, the year 2018 on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. This broadcast was directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeflik of WRHS-FM Norwich and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chicando. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Wednesday, August the 15th, the year 2018. Until next time, friends, please be safe, and thanks for listening. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM, Norwich, Illinois.